I mean, I'm trying to be positive. I mean, after the match, I definitely was struggling in the locker room. I don't like losing, and yeah, I think for me the main thing I'm sure my team and everyone maybe some conversations we can be had. Yeah, I tried to go somewhere where there's no cameras. Yeah, I kind of feel like I have a thing with the broadcast. I feel like certain moments, the same
We
thing.
let you go, and Chris doesn't even know about this, but I thought it would be a little bit fun to do a little this or that, his
Okay.
or hers. Who does this better? All
Okay.
right. Who's funnier?
COCO GAUFF robbed. The Australian Open scandal that just broke tennis forever. What is going on, Chatterbox fam? Welcome back to the channel where we don't just spill the tea. We brew the whole pot, serve it scalding hot, and make sure you're absolutely wide awake for every single drop. If you're new here, buckle up because you picked one heck of a day to join us. And if you're a regular, you already know we never hold back when it comes to exposing the truth behind the headlines. Now listen. If you thought you saw everything at this year's Australian Open, think again. Seriously, put down your coffee, your phone, whatever you're doing, because the news we have today isn't just shocking. It is literally record-breaking, history-making, and absolutely jaw-dropping. We are talking about the biggest officiating scandal to hit professional tennis in over a decade, and the reverberations are going to be felt for years to come. The Australian Open quarterfinal between American Golden Girl COCO GAUFF and Ukrainian warrior Alina Svitolina was supposed to be a tennis blockbuster, a clash of titans, a showcase of world-class athleticism and competitive fire. Instead, it turned into what many are now calling a complete and utter crime scene. Umpire Eva Astaraki, a veteran official with decades of experience, has officially been slapped with a penalty so harsh, so unprecedented, that it's shaking the very foundations of the Women's Tennis Association and forcing the entire sport to look in the mirror and ask some very uncomfortable questions. Was COCO GAUFF robbed in broad daylight? Did one of tennis's brightest young stars get cheated out of a Grand Slam semifinal appearance by incompetent officiating? The tennis authorities seem to think so, and the evidence is absolutely damning. So grab your popcorn, settle in, and let's dive headfirst into this absolute chaos because this story has more twists and turns than a championship tiebreaker. Let's set the scene, shall we? Rod Laver Arena, Melbourne, Australia. The sun is blazing, the crowd is electric, and the stakes couldn't be higher. We're talking about a Grand Slam quarterfinal, the moment where champions are made and dreams either soar or shatter into a million pieces. On one side of the net, you have COCO GAUFF, the world number 3, America's tennis darling, a U.S. Open champion with ice in her veins and fire in her heart, looking to add another Grand Slam trophy to her rapidly growing collection. The girl is only in her early 20s, and she's already being mentioned in the same breath as Serena Williams when it comes to American tennis royalty. On the other side, you have Alina Svitolina, the Ukrainian powerhouse who has been playing some of the most inspired, courageous tennis of her entire career this season, representing her war-torn country with incredible grace and determination. This match had all the ingredients of an instant classic. The narrative was perfect. The talent level was off the charts. Tennis fans around the world cleared their schedules, set their alarms, and prepared for what should have been an unforgettable battle. But here's where things get weird, where the story takes a dark turn that nobody saw coming. If you looked at just the box score, if you were one of those casual fans who only checks the final results on ESPN or your sports app, you'd see Svitolina winning 6-1, 6-2. A blowout. A demolition. A completely one-sided affair where GAUFF supposedly never showed up, never found her rhythm, and got absolutely steamrolled by a superior opponent on the day. That's certainly what the mainstream media wanted you to believe. That's the narrative that was being pushed in the immediate aftermath. Poor Coco just had a bad day at the office, right? It happens to everyone. Even the best players in the world lay an egg sometimes. But if you were actually watching the match closely, if you were paying attention to the body language, the interactions, the escalating tension on that court, the vibe was completely and utterly off. Something wasn't right. Coco wasn't just struggling with her serve or missing routine forehands. She was visibly, increasingly frustrated with the officiating, and we're not talking about the usual player complaints that happen in every match. This was different. This was a player who felt like she was fighting an uphill battle not just against her opponent, but against the very system that's supposed to ensure fair play. We saw the frustration building point by point, game by game. The body language spoke volumes. The arguments with the chair umpire became more frequent and more heated. And now, with the information that has just exploded into the public sphere over the past 48 hours, we know exactly why. Imagine this for a second. Put yourself in Coco's shoes. You're grinding out a brutal rally, running from corner to corner, finally hitting what you know is a clean winner down the line. And before you can even celebrate, before the crowd can even react, you hear that dreaded call, out. Your winner just became your opponent's point. The momentum you were desperately trying to build just evaporated into thin air. The mental energy you were investing into turning the match around just got completely wasted. And this isn't happening once. This is happening repeatedly at the worst possible moments, when you're trying to claw your way back into the match. Or picture this. You're preparing for your service motion, going through your routine, bouncing the ball, and suddenly you're hit with a time violation. Your rhythm is shattered. Your focus is broken. You're now serving under duress, thinking about the clock instead of your opponent. And surprise, surprise, you either double fault or hit a weak serve that gets attacked. The game you were supposed to hold comfortably is now in jeopardy, and the set is slipping through your fingers. For days leading up to this bombshell announcement, tennis fans on social media had been absolutely screaming about what they witnessed. Twitter was on fire. Reddit threads were multiplying by the hour. The hashtag demanding justice for Coco was trending worldwide. Fans were posting side-by-side video comparisons showing clear inconsistencies in how calls were made. They were pointing out that Gauff seemed to be receiving a level of harshness, a degree of scrutiny, that wasn't being applied equally to her opponent. And here's where the story gets even more loaded with historical baggage. Iva Astaraki has previous history with controversial calls involving prominent black female tennis players. Does the name Serena Williams ring a bell? Because tennis fans with long memories immediately started drawing parallels to past incidents where Astaraki's officiating in matches involving Serena raised serious eyebrows and generated significant controversy. The whispers of potential bias, whether conscious or unconscious, were getting louder and louder with each passing hour after the match ended. The tennis establishment, which historically moves at a glacial pace when it comes to acknowledging officiating errors, tried to keep a lid on this situation. They hoped it would blow over like these things usually do. A few days of online outrage, some think pieces in tennis publications, and then everyone moves on to the next tournament, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Because what happened next is absolutely unprecedented in the modern era of professional tennis. Here is the bombshell update that has the entire tennis world in absolute chaos right now. The news that confirms everything angry fans have been saying for days. The announcement that vindicates COCO GAUFF and exposes a catastrophic failure of officiating at the sport's highest level. Umpire Iva Astaraki has officially received what sources are describing as a record-breaking penalty for her conduct during the Gauff-Svitolina quarterfinal match. Now, the tennis authorities, true to their usual secretive and protective nature when it comes to their officials, are keeping the exact details of the punishment under extremely tight wraps. We don't yet know the precise dollar amount of any fine that may have been levied. We don't know the exact length of any suspension she might be facing. The official statement from the tournament and the WTA has been carefully worded, vague, and clearly designed to limit the public relations damage. But here's what we do know from multiple credible sources who have spoken on condition of anonymity. This penalty is being described internally as the harshest disciplinary action ever applied to a chair umpire in modern Grand Slam history. Let that sink in for a moment. In the entire modern era of professional tennis, with all the controversial calls and disputed matches we've seen over the decades, this particular case has resulted in the most severe punishment ever handed down to an official. That is not hyperbole. That is not exaggeration. That is the reality of how seriously the tennis authorities are treating what happened in Melbourne. This confirmation changes absolutely everything about how we interpret the events of that quarterfinal match. The errors weren't just mistakes, the kind of unfortunate but understandable human errors that occasionally slip through despite everyone's best efforts. They were deemed to represent unacceptable negligence, a failure to meet the basic standards of competence and fairness expected of officials at this level. The investigation concluded that what happened on that court fell so far below acceptable standards that unprecedented action had to be taken. Imagine the powerlessness of that moment. You're one of the best tennis players on the entire planet. You've trained your whole life for opportunities like this. You've sacrificed everything to be in position to compete for the biggest titles in the sport. And in the moment when it matters most, you realize that your opponent isn't the only obstacle you're facing. You're also fighting against officiating that seems determined to undermine your chances at every turn. And there's nothing you can do about it in the moment. You can't appeal. You can't demand a review of every questionable call. You're powerless, forced to just accept these decisions and try to overcome an increasingly impossible situation. Of course, she smashed her racket. Of course, she broke down in tears. Any competitor with an ounce of competitive fire in their soul would have reacted the same way or worse. And the fact that she managed to maintain her composure on the court as well as she did, that she didn't completely lose it during the match itself, actually speaks to her incredible professionalism and mental strength, not a lack thereof. So now the question that everyone is asking, the question that is dominating every tennis forum, podcast, and social media discussion, is whether this penalty, as historic and unprecedented as it might be, represents genuine justice or merely damage control. Is it too little, too late? Does it actually fix anything? Or is it just the tennis establishment trying to save face after being caught red-handed? Sure, penalizing the umpire sets a precedent going forward. It sends a message to officials around the world that this level of incompetence or bias, whatever it was, will not be tolerated. It says to players, fans, and the media that the authorities are watching, that they take officiating seriously, and that they're willing to hold their officials accountable when they fail to meet expected standards. That's all well and good in theory. But here's the harsh reality that no official statement or penalty can change. It doesn't give COCO GAUFF her spot back in the semifinals. It doesn't erase that 6-1, 6-2 scoreline from the record books. It doesn't restore the prize money she would have earned by advancing further in the tournament. It doesn't give her back the ranking points she would have accumulated. Most importantly, it doesn't return the opportunity she had to potentially win another Grand Slam title, to cement her legacy even further, to add another major chapter to her already incredible story. Alina Svitolina has moved on in the tournament. She's advancing her own career, earning her own achievements, and nobody is suggesting that she did anything wrong. She played the match in front of her, competed with everything she had, and accepted the points and calls as they were given. She's an innocent party in all of this chaos. But the shadow that now hangs over this particular match, the asterisk that will forever be attached to this result in the minds of tennis fans, is going to linger for a very, very long time. And here's what makes this situation even more frustrating. We're in 2026. We have technology that can track a tennis ball to within millimeters of accuracy. We have Hawkeye systems that can show us exactly where every single shot landed. We have cameras covering every angle of the court from multiple perspectives. We have the capability to review and verify virtually every meaningful call in real time. And yet, somehow, in the biggest matches on the sport's biggest stages, we're still relying on human officials making judgment calls that can alter the outcome of matches, potentially costing players millions of dollars in prize money and career-defining opportunities. The calls for reform are getting louder by the day. Fans are demanding a complete overhaul of how umpires are evaluated, trained, and monitored. There are serious discussions happening right now about expanding the use of technology to remove human error from as much of the officiating process as possible. People are questioning why we allow chair umpires to have so much unchecked power over crucial calls when we have the technological means to verify accuracy instantly. Gauff's camp, to their credit, has handled this situation with remarkable professionalism and restraint. In the immediate aftermath of the match, despite the obvious frustration and emotion, they made no public accusations. They didn't throw the umpire under the bus in press conferences. They didn't make wild claims on social media. They let the investigation speak for itself, trusting that if there were indeed serious problems with the officiating, the appropriate authorities would uncover the truth and take appropriate action. And that measured approach has been completely vindicated by the outcome of the investigation and the resulting penalty. The broader implications of this scandal extend far beyond just this one match or this one tournament. The integrity of professional tennis as a sport depends fundamentally on the belief that outcomes are decided by athletic performance, not by officiating errors or bias. When that belief is shaken, when fans start to suspect that matches aren't being decided fairly, the entire foundation of the sport is threatened. Sponsors start to question their investments. Television networks worry about viewership. Players become demoralized, wondering if their hard work and talent will be enough when officials might tip the scales. The timing of this scandal is particularly awkward for tennis, coming at a moment when the sport has been working hard to expand its global reach, attract younger fans, and position itself as a modern, progressive, technologically advanced athletic competition. Having to deal with headlines about officiating corruption and potential bias is absolutely the last thing tennis administrators wanted right now. But sometimes the truth has to come out, no matter how inconvenient or uncomfortable it might be. Looking ahead, there are serious questions about what happens next. Will there be additional investigations into other matches Eva Astaraki has officiated to see if there are patterns of questionable calls? Will there be a comprehensive review of officiating standards and training protocols across all the major tennis tours? Will technology finally be embraced more fully to minimize the impact of human error? Will there be more transparency around how officials are evaluated and disciplined when they make mistakes? These are questions that the tennis establishment is going to be forced to answer in the coming weeks and months, whether they want to or not. The spotlight is too bright, the outrage too intense, the evidence too clear for this to just be swept under the rug and forgotten. Real change needs to happen, and it needs to happen soon, or else the sport risks losing the trust of players and fans alike. Everyone who criticized her for her emotional reaction after the match now owes her a massive apology. But on the other hand, she's still out of the tournament. She still doesn't get the opportunity she deserved to compete for a spot in the finals. The acknowledgement that she was wronged doesn't restore what was taken from her. How does a competitor move forward from something like this? How do you maintain faith in the system when the system has failed you so spectacularly? These are psychological challenges that go far beyond tennis technique or physical conditioning. This is about whether you can trust that when you step on the court for your next big match, you'll receive fair treatment, that your fate will be decided by your performance and your opponent's performance, not by the person sitting in the chair. The good news is that COCO GAUFF has already demonstrated remarkable resilience throughout her young career. She's faced adversity before. She's dealt with enormous pressure and expectations from the time she was a teenager. She's handled criticism, setbacks, and disappointments with a maturity and grace well beyond her years. If anyone has the mental fortitude to channel this experience into motivation for future success, it's her. This scandal has also sparked a broader conversation about the treatment of athletes in high-pressure situations and the rush to judgment that often occurs on social media and in traditional media. How many times have we seen athletes criticized for emotional reactions after tough losses, only to later discover that there were legitimate reasons for their frustration that weren't immediately apparent? How often do we rush to label someone as a poor sport or mentally weak without knowing the full context of what they experienced? The COCO GAUFF situation should serve as a cautionary tale about the importance of withholding judgment, of seeking full information before forming conclusions, of giving athletes the benefit of the doubt when they express frustration or disappointment. These are human beings operating under incredible pressure, competing for outcomes that will define their careers and legacies, and sometimes their emotional reactions are completely justified responses to genuinely unfair situations. This is a dark day for tennis officiating. There's no sugarcoating that reality. The sport has been forced to confront some ugly truths about its systems, its standards, and potentially its biases. But in another sense, this could also represent a turning point, a moment when tennis decides to fundamentally reimagine how it approaches officiating in order to prevent something like this from ever happening again. But here's what we know about COCO GAUFF. She's a fighter. She's a champion. She's someone who has overcome obstacles and exceeded expectations throughout her entire career. This setback, as devastating and unfair as it is, won't define her. If anything, it will fuel her drive to come back stronger, to prove her doubters wrong, to win more Grand Slams, and cement her place among the all-time greats of the sport. The Australian Open 2026 will be remembered for this scandal, for this controversy, for the day that tennis was forced to confront its officiating crisis head-on. But years from now, when we look back at COCO GAUFF's career, this moment will hopefully be just one chapter in a much longer story of triumph, resilience, and excellence. Okay, Chatterbox fam, I need to hear from you right now because this story is far from over and your voices matter. Do you think a record-breaking penalty against the umpire is enough justice for what happened to Coco? Or should there be further action, maybe even an unprecedented review of the match result itself? Do you believe there's a deeper pattern of bias against COCO GAUFF in the officiating world, or was this an isolated incident of incompetence? And what changes do you want to see in how tennis handles officiating going forward? Let's absolutely fight it out in the comments section below because I want to hear every single one of your theories, opinions, and hot takes. I'll be reading through all of them and featuring the best analysis and most interesting perspectives in our next video. This is your chance to be part of the conversation, to hold tennis accountable, and to demand the changes that players and fans deserve. If this story made your blood boil, if you're fired up about the injustice of what happened, show that passion by absolutely smashing that like button harder than Coco smashed that racket backstage. Seriously, make that like button feel it. And if you haven't already subscribed to Chatterbox, what are you even waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and make sure you've got notifications turned on so you never miss a moment when we break down the biggest, most explosive stories in sports and entertainment. Share this video with every tennis fan you know because this is a story that demands attention, that requires discussion, that can't be ignored or swept under the rug. The more people talking about this scandal, the more pressure there will be on tennis authorities to implement real, meaningful change. This is Chatterbox, and we're not going anywhere until justice is served and the system is fixed. Stay loud, stay passionate, and most importantly, stay informed. We'll see you in the next one with more tea, more truth, and more stories that the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. Peace out.